become a matter of politics. And depending on which side the various MPs sit, they've made point to satisfy their various political bases.
Well, Kweku, I mean, for the public, they would want to know if these cases have grounds for prosecution, right? And so that is for the OSP to establish. And so why would anybody think that this is politically motivated?
Well, they talk about the measures the OSP has taken, the specific steps he has taken. They believe that coming out to publicly declare that Ken Ofori-Atta is a wanted man smacks of certain political mischief, and that as far as they are concerned, the lawyers of the special prosecutor have always availed themselves to be interviewed, to be spoken to by the special prosecutor. They do not believe that enough grounds have been laid. In fact, they had also even questioned the legal basis of the special prosecutor declaring Mr. Ofori-Atta a political fugitive, because as far as they are concerned, Ken Ofori-Atta has not been put on arrest. No charges have been leveled against him. He has only been invited to come to the special prosecutor to answer questions, and they do not believe that enough has been done for him to be declared a fugitive in that matter. And that is why they say that the special prosecutor must come again, perhaps recant the press conference of yesterday. They also talk about the national security operatives who did storm the office, the residence of the former finance minister, and made, in terms of the search they conducted in the house, also they say that was without warrant and was unlawful.
Quickly, we've got 30 seconds. Just this developing in the last hour, the minority demanding answers from the NIB for inviting and interrogating an Odompe. What's the story?
Well, yes, we know that on Monday, the NIB did invite the minority chief whip for certain comments he made that was deemed inciting. The National Investigative Bureau took a statement, the National Security Outfit, they questioned him, interrogated him on that level. The minority say that there are certain comments that have been made by the members of the NDC that national security have not conducted the same due diligence, and they believe that all this is weaponizing security agencies against political opponents.
All right. A lot happening around town. Thank you so much, Kweku Asante. He is our parliamentary correspondent. And that's the Marketplace. Thanks for watching, everyone. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. It's taking a while for that to come. myjoyonline.com/business. That's where to go for the day's latest stories. My name is Darryl Powell. Thanks for watching. We will be back same time tomorrow.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 77%. Are you feeling fabulous or having a bad hair day? Whether straight or curly, kinky or wavy, natural or from the store, your hair has a story to tell. And on today's show, we want to take a look at how hair and heritage are interlocked. I'm your host, Liz Cho. Let's come through this week's pieces. In South Africa, Gen Zs try to brush off the negativity towards natural hairstyles. In Ghana, Michael Afutu doesn't dread the fight against Locke's bad reputation. And in My Hustle, Samson joins Fulani herders to find out why their lifestyle is a cut above the rest. So, how much thought did you put into your hair today? Are you team practical and easy to handle, or are you a person who spends hours and serious cash on your hair? I personally chose this hairstyle because it only takes me half a minute in the morning to look presentable. And I know by this point, some of you are wondering why we're even talking about hair in the first place. I mean, isn't it just hair? Well, let's find out.
Let's talk hair. Whether it's long, short, styled, or natural, it defines our faces, from you and me. To celebrities on our screens, whether it's Diana Ross, Lupita, Bob Marley, Rihanna, or Burna Boy, everyone is crazy about hair. And for good reason. It's a fashion statement.
As Black people, we like expressing ourselves in different ways. We like wearing our hair in different ways.
A religious statement.
I feel like hair plays a very significant role, especially within spirituality. And I don't want to just bracket it and say African spirituality, just spirituality as a whole. Within our African narrative, when there's a funeral, hair plays a significant role where the family may shed off their hair in mourning.
And gives a sense of identity.
Our hair plays a very important role. It's a statement showing everyone else who we are. Hair is a form of unspoken language, almost like music.
Whatever the case, how we wear our hair matters. But have you ever wondered why hairstyles are such a big deal across Africa? Long before the colonial era, African hairstyles often had a language of their own, conveying messages about religion, wealth, age, social class, tribe, ethnic identity, and marital status. The Fulani people of West Africa adorned their hair with intricate braids and beads, signifying social status and personal identity. And the Himba people of Namibia, whose red ochre plates are an expression of marital status. Black people's hair, however, has also been a reason for outrage and controversy. With the coming of colonization and slavery, black hair was often framed as unkempt and unprofessional against European beauty standards. Thanks to black empowerment movements across the continent and in the diaspora, people now wear their hair with pride. And with a plethora of products, an army of hairdressers and barbers, there's always someone around to keep us looking good. So next time you style your hair or admire someone else's, remember, it's more than just a look.
I remember when I was going to school in Tanzania, all the girls had to shave their hair off. We all looked like boys. And back then, I swore to myself that once I graduate, I'll never wear short hair again. Well, looking back now, that's nothing compared to what school children in South Africa had to go through during apartheid, the so-called pencil test. If a pencil was put into your hair and it would slide out, you could pass as white. If it stayed in your hair, you would be considered black or colored. So your hair type would determine your standard of living and the quality of your life. But today, South Africans are wearing their natural hair with pride.
Everyone has an opinion on hair. Across South Africa, it has sparked a debate around identity and beauty ideals. So are South African women really sending messages with their hairstyles?
If you are like you're wearing your natural hair, people look at you, oh, you follow for the like we have that, we do judge if you're wearing hair. I don't know why.
I actually love my hair, and it's a new thing for me. Like, I've always tucked my hair in or braided it or had a weave on at some point.
I have a natural hair. It's an afro. So I like to braid them. So it's very beautiful. Braids are nice.
The type of beauty that was marketed to us as black women was more of a Western standard. So it was like a no-go zone for me to even try to cut my hair and see what my natural hair looked like. But the day I did, oh my goodness, I was like, I'm never ever going back again.
For stylist Misa Mimiduma, hair is more than a craft.
I really consider myself to be no ordinary stylist. The physical me disappears. I really just disappear and creation takes over and I build, and when I then step back to look at this creation, sometimes I'm also amazed.
Mimi has collaborated with other artists in Johannesburg to showcase their own new idea of hair. For Mimi, fashion shoots showcase her talent and creativity.
I label myself as a natural hair stylist not disregarding anything else that doesn't fall under the umbrella of natural. And yes, we can play around with braids and wigs and weaves, but understanding that you are not the wig. When that wig comes off, you still need to be confident with the hair that comes out of your scalp.
Negative stereotypes about Afro hair have led to many men and women ditching kinky and puffy hair for tamed hairstyles. These cliches have deep roots in colonialism and later in South Africa's apartheid regime. But younger South African women want a different look.
In Zimbabwe, which is where I'm originally from, one of the biggest stereotypes associated with natural hair is poverty. A lot of people have also experienced discrimination in schools because natural hair may not be seen as professional or may be seen as a distraction.
Noreen Jonathan has thousands of followers on Instagram with videos showcasing her natural hair routine and product recommendations.
I also wanted to be the role model that I didn't see when I was younger. So I wanted to show my natural hair, show it in different styles, figure out a way to basically romanticize tightly coiled, textured hair.
During apartheid, hair was one way to separate black people from the rest of society. The so-called pencil test became infamous, where a pencil was put into people's hair, and if it didn't fall, it meant that the person had Afro hair, and therefore was not classified as white. Under apartheid, racial classification led to racial discrimination and violence. It also contributed to the myth that straighter hair was better, influencing entire generations. For Tai Ivonte, who is a loctician, this is something she also has noticed in the media too.
We see it in the magazines when they want to put the beautiful women. It's the women with the straight hair. If you want to look the movies, like even for the kids' cartoons, all you see is the beautiful Barbies with straight hair. So it's a system that has been put in place for decades.
One way of styling tight Afro curls while keeping it natural is micro-locks, of which Ivan is a master.
Because I wanted people also to see this other side of going natural, using less products, not putting anything on your hair apart from water and some light oils.
The South African natural hair movement has come a long way, and the country's hair care industry is booming. It's worth $500 million and is projected to grow more than 6% in the next 5 years. But Liesel Smerdon, who runs a Cape Town-based natural hair care line, believes there is more potential.
So in the beginning, there were not a lot of people starting their own businesses, and slowly but surely people were starting their own brands. And now there are so many people starting their own natural hair care brands.
Liesel also believes that there's still work to be done for women to fully feel confident.
So it is a bit of a journey of self-acceptance and finding yourself, but it's really, really worth it. There will be a few times when you are doubting yourself, where you might think, is this a good idea to even go natural? But I promise in the end, you're gonna love the outcome.
Speaking of natural hair, let's talk about dreads, locks, dreadlocks. No matter what they are called, they are here to stay. From Bob Marley to Burna Boy, locks have crossed continents and eras. In Ghana, we learned that for some, they are simply a fashion statement. For others, they are a way to show the world their cultural heritage. Let's now go to the capital, Accra, where this hairstyle is becoming more and more popular, but it has a rather difficult history, and even today, men especially may still face prejudice if they choose to rock some locks.
What kind of person wears dreadlocks?
Hi, I'm Senna. I'm a performance artist.
Hi, I am Latte. I am a film producer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm a nurse.
Hair trends in Ghana have seen many changes over the years, from ancient styles of braiding with thread until now, where there are as many styles as people to wear them, including dreadlocks.
I initiated this dreadlocks and natural hair, and now the whole Ghana is tripping into it because we have many salons now that people can go and have their hair done.
In the past, dreadlocks were a big no-go for many. They were associated with marijuana, Rastafarianism, and deemed unprofessional. Michael, a self-taught loctician, got tangled in the dreadlock business. Now, locks are all the rage in Ghana, turning heads and making waves.
I have been with the beauty world, knowing the hair problem people face by using these harsh, dangerous chemicals. And I'm happy that people have accepted this concept of dreadlocks in this country.
After dropping out of school due to financial struggles at a young age, Michael kicked off his career as a roving barber. Later, he joined a company making hair relaxers, where he witnessed firsthand the challenges women face with these products, such as retouching one's hair every 2 weeks, the painful sensation of chemicals burning on your scalp, and the rising cost of the products. So Michael set out to find better solutions for Ghanaian hair.
From there, then I became a trichologist by producing products to be able to maintain the hair within the hair industry, because I find out that people who have been doing the other stuff of hair have a lot of problems to solve.
Back then, it was common to hide your hair under wigs or to get it straightened. $1 million business which Michael wanted to change.
So bringing them into the natural world, I have to solve those problems. It got to a point that I realized that I have achieved, prominent people walking in and doing their hair and solving the problems within the natural and dreadlocks world.
Today, Michael has clients like Adam Naite, a brand manager for one of Ghana's leading media houses.
I made a decision to, take off my permed hair and then wear the natural hair. So when I cut it, I was wearing the natural hair like that. You'd wake up, you'd wash it, you'd comb it, and then, I wore that for a while and then decided to lock it. So this locks has been on for 3 years, and I must say that it's been bliss. I have escaped all the issues around wearing wigs. You have to go somewhere, you are thinking of which wig color to wear, how to wear, whether long or short and all that. That is not part of the things I think about. So basically, that has been it, and I have enjoyed it ever since. No turning back.
In order to pass on his skill set, Michael has opened a school to train both local and international stylists who want to learn his trade. And today, Michael is proud about the role he's played changing minds about the dreaded locks. Because, after all, it's just hair.
We'll now take you to a man with great locks, DW's very own Samson Adeleke. As a fan of this show, you know that Sam is always traveling the continent to learn about people's hustles and their heritage. And he doesn't just watch, he rolls up his sleeves, ties his hair, and joins the action. By the way, you have to check out our YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram to find more great videos from our My Hustle series. Today, Sam is in Kano State, Nigeria, where he joins traditional Fulani herders.
Can you communicate with the cows?
Yes.
So how do you communicate with them?
Today, our featured hustler is
My name is Zubair Mohammed Zubair, the secretary of Mieti Allah Kura branch. I am a herder and I don't have any other job. This is my hustle.
For many Fulani communities, cattle herding is not just a job, it is a time-honored tradition. You are welcome to another exciting episode of My Hustle.
Jam, how are you? You wake up fine?
Yeah, love you.
Fine.
What's this?
You need this before you become a herder.
Okay. Wow, so this is a gift, right?
Yes.
Can I dance with you like this too? Mohammed, no. You were born into this lifestyle. I want to know, what does it take to be a herder?
If you want to be a herder, you have to be a hard-working man, without fear. You cannot relent or give up.
Without wasting our time, I want to get into action. I want to see how you take your cows out early in the morning for grazing, then you bring them back. So is this something that you think I can learn today?
I can teach you, and if you believe it in your mind, you can learn it.
Oh, I'm ready, man.
Are you ready?
You can see.
Now we bring them to the water. And when we are out, we are not coming back until 6 p.m., 5:30 p.m. or 7 p.m.
No problem. Yeah. So why do you say?
It is a commanded language and they hear it.
Oh, and they understand. Yes. Wow. It's very simple. To control this animal, all you need to do is let's go there. And this is what you do every day.
Every day, this is how we will be walking out with the herd like this.
Then you said you have over 50 cows, right?
Yes, and this is a small herd because we want to make it easier to control the cattle. We divide big herds by 3 or more.
I divide it into 3 to 4. Wow.
Bro,
you are a billionaire. You are a rich man. Have you ever had any experience whereby your cows enter somebody's farm and there was argument?
Yes, yes, we do experience it. We come to the farmer, we estimate the damage, and then we pay.
This your hustle is not easy. One must be strong to
I see that you can be able to rear cows.
When you're taking the cows out, are you supposed to be at the front or you be at the back?
We usually come out in twos, one at the front and one at the back.
How do you make money from this also?
We earn money from the cow milk we sell. And if we need more money, we take an animal to the market and then we sell it.
Which of the techniques do you prefer? Taking the cows to the bush for grazing or using the modern techniques way of feeding the cows?
Modern techniques would be better than herding. Because the herder boys could attend school. Lack of education is a big problem here. If the animals were kept in one place, they also could get good food, which would make them stronger.
Fulani people always migrate in a very unique way. I mean, you have multiple families moving together with their livestock. So, what's the secret behind this?
This is the culture and tradition of the Fulani. When we are ready to move from one place to another, we move with our house, families, our cattle, and everything. We move through forests and avoid the towns. If the night catches us on the way, we make camp, and that is our home. When we reach our final destination, we build our houses.
Enjoy the track. Mieti, I have had an incredible time exploring Fulani culture and tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, keep watching DW, the 77%.
Great reporting as always, Samson. Thank you so much for allowing us to learn about the Fulani culture. Well, while the herders are preserving their heritage, for others, heritage is simply about where they come from, the place they call home. And let me tell you, the people of Cape Coast, Ghana are especially proud of their home city. Today in our series, My City, we have none other than recording artist Yao Black showing us all his favorite spots in town. And just a warning, if you are scared of heights, some places are not for you.
Hello, beautiful people. My name is Yao Black, a singer-songwriter and a recording artist from Ghana, West Africa. And I'm about to show you my beautiful city of Cape Coast. This is my city.
The historic market and port city of Cape Coast in Ghana is a landmark for any weary traveler. Yao Black is just one of its over 170,000 proud residents. The singer starts his tour a few kilometers outside town in the cherished Kakum National Park.
So this is the entry point to the Kakum Canopy Walk, and like we say in Chi, Akwaba. Let's do this.
Kakum became Ghana's first protected conservation area in 1931. It hosts endangered wildlife like forest elephants, buffalo, and primates.
The beginning height is around 11 feet, and when you get to the highest point, it's about 45 meters above sea level. It's getting real. Really funky.
Thousands of people visit Kakum each year to experience the breathtaking canopy walkway. And for Yao Black, it is especially special.
And at the highest points now, it doesn't get any better than this. So I made one of my music videos here. And it's just to represent where I'm coming from. I'm very proud of my heritage as a Ghanaian, and especially being from Cape Coast.
Next, we head to the sea to visit Elmina Castle, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Built in the 15th century by the Portuguese, it played a major role in the transatlantic slave trade. Now it's open to visitors to learn about this cruel past.
And in here is the final destination for most of the slaves, and this right here is the door of no return. Once you get here, you know you're never seeing your family again.
Elmina Castle has become somewhat of a pilgrimage site for members of the African diaspora who trace their roots back to the slave trade. Close by, the old fish market still bustles. Countless generations have continued the time-honored traditions of fishing and fish curing.
The youth here are ready to put their energy into something productive. They are all going fishing, trying to make an ends meet from what's the most common economic gain in the region. We are not done. Let's go get some amazing delicacy from around. Keep it locked.
One local delicacy Yao Black wants us to taste is Fanti Kenke.
Made from fermented corn, wrapped with dried plantain leaves, and then steamed to perfection. You can have it with Fanti, which is also a local delicacy, made from fresh fish, tomatoes, and palm oil.
With a full belly, Yao Black shows us the existential threat to Cape Coast. The region used to boast some of Ghana's most stunning beaches, but coastal erosion and pollution is threatening livelihoods and homes. The shore around Cape Coast has been fortified with rock wave breakers, and Yao Black hopes this is just the first step in rehabilitating this iconic city's coastal heritage.
We want a better Cape Coast for all of us, and Cape Coast won't be better for just me. When there's more cleanliness, when there's more serene environment, the tourists that will come in will serve as an avenue for me to sell my music. There are other entrepreneurs in and around. If we can all come together to push one single agenda, it will be very easy for us to be able to sell the brand Cape Coast and make it one of the top tourist destinations in the whole world.
Absolutely. I'd definitely love to visit. Thank you so much for showing us around your home city of Cape Coast in Ghana. Well, those stunning views take us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much for being with us today. Don't forget that we have many more reports and stories from across the continent. If you are not following us on social media, stop everything you're doing and go hit that follow button right now. And by the way, if you want to tell us about what your hair means to you and your heritage, feel free to let us know. I'll leave you with some Rasta Afro-Caribbean power, Yemi Alade and Ziggy Marley with Peace and Love.
Did you know that some videos circulating on social media falsely claiming to be from JoyNews and advertising some drugs are fakes? These fake videos advertise unapproved medicines using deep fakes of our presenters to endorse these medicines. Here's one example.
Blood pressure exceeds 120/80, internal organs are affected, and a stroke occurs. A famous doctor has developed a drug that prevents high blood pressure.
You can learn to spot these fake videos. Here's how. The first sign. Notice how the lips of the anchor do not exactly match the words being spoken. Also, pay attention to the JoyNews logo in the bottom left corner. With a real JoyNews logo, the globe rotates. If you spot a static logo, it is an indication the video you're watching is fake. Doctored videos often have slight inconsistencies. It could be in the audio quality, visual glitches, or even lighting. Listen to this audio carefully.
Johnson Haynes will talk about a drug from the USA.
You will notice that this is computer generated and lacks the natural pauses and rhythms of a human voice. You will notice something irregular at the edge of the head and the background. It is because the image has most likely been superimposed on that background. Another indication that this video is fake. Finally, always check who is posting the video. In this instance, the post is from a group calling itself Citizens for a Healthy Nation. When you click on the link, it tells you they are into advertising and marketing based in South Africa. This should tell you it is not from JoyNews. In another instance, the post is by an individual who describes himself as Paisano. But again, the page is labeled as advertising and marketing with a number that is reported to originate from the Dominican Republic and an 809 area code that has been associated with scams in the past. This is another indication the video is fake and not from JoyNews. Now that is how you spot the fake. So if something feels off, it probably is. Trust your instincts and double check before sharing or acting on any information. Or better still, you can report to the police or the FDA or come to our offices at JoyNews to verify any advertisement.
I was born in Accra, but my father hails from Odumasi Kobo in the Eastern region. I'm a banker by profession. I work with Zenith Bank as an internal auditor. Well, my Help Your Foundation will turn 6 this year. We are a group of young professionals who have come together to pull some resources together to help the needy and the poor in our society. Well, what motivated the advent of my Help Your Foundation was for 2 reasons. One, I'm an orphan myself, and the second thing was about 10 years ago, I was bedridden and I had to undergo a surgery which almost took my life. I had to bargain with God to spare my life. And on my sick bed, these were the words that came to me, that I should take care of the orphans, widows, and the less privileged in society because I'm one of them. And since then, I have not turned my back in doing that or in doing what God has asked me to do. I work as a banker by profession, but run an NGO as a ministry to God. It's been fantastic. It's been awesome. It's been by the doing of God. Great things God is doing, greater things He will be doing, and I know greater and mighty things will be doing. We've done a lot of projects. We've done a lot of projects across the length and breadth of the country, across so many regions. We are hoping to do more, run it through to the northern sector of the country and to the other hinterlands of the country as well. From 2018 to date, if you put everything together, I might say over 10,000 people have benefited from our generosity or our kindness or from my Help Your Foundation. Spread across the country, from the central region, eastern region, western, even in Greater Accra, everywhere. Well, I think this JoyNews Impact Awards is something that is in the right direction. It's a step in the right direction in a sense that they are rewarding or awarding or giving recognition to people, as it were, who might not have been known in their small corners, doing their little things, and bring them to the limelight.
To Ghana, which is selling the longest dated Eurobond ever issued by a sub-Saharan African government.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is challenging global investors to put their money behind Ghana's growing economy.
Ghana has added 10.7 billion Ghana cedis to its public debt stock in just 4 months.
If you go to the market today, you will not get anybody to lend to you below 9.5%.
You can't be in the capital markets if you don't have a mechanism for repayment.
One basic understanding of the market is that when you come onto the market unattractive, you'll be punished.
There will be no haircuts.
There will be no haircuts.
Instantly, the market knew the president wasn't speaking the truth.
Ghana has been in the spotlight after announcing it will default on most of its external debt.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta indicates that Eurobond holders may face a nominal haircut of between 30 and 40% as part of the restructuring of external debt.
Discussions with Eurobond investors are continuing. We have given a broad outline of 20 to 40% haircut under 20 years and interest rates of less than 5%.
It's more of discipline. It's more fiscal discipline. And then also we fell into the habit, if you ask, of borrowing first domestic treasury bills. Treasury bill is for liquidity. That's why it's only 90 days, no, 91 days. And usually at the beginning of the year, you cannot reduce certain expenditures, wages and the rest. So you borrow short term. You say 90 days, 3 months, and then for exigencies. Then when the revenue starts coming, you pay off because for only 90 days. Yeah. But we started rolling over. The non-payment resulted in more borrowing and more borrowing. But we began to carry that fiscal indiscipline to the sovereign bond markets. So we're issuing only interest-only loans and the rest. And then the 10 years caught up with us, which was what we realized in 2014, that we're just paying only interest, and you can't be in the capital markets if you don't have a mechanism for repayment.
Following its exit from the heavily indebted Poor Countries Initiative some 2 decades ago, Ghana has consistently developed a strong taste for commercial loans from the international capital market, Eurobonds, typically securing loans at interest rates ranging from 6% to 11%.
Before, we used to have money from IMF, but Germany, Danida, JICA. And then as we said we're growing rich, we depended more on international capital markets, got a lot of money from international capital markets, and how we invested is another problem.
Each fiscal year, Ghana requires between $1 billion and $3 billion worth of foreign loans to support its budget and address balance of payment challenges. Before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ghana government had borrowed $5 billion from the Eurobond market between 2017 and 2019. Repayment was heavily reliant on revenue mobilization, a strategy that did not materialize as expected. Consequently, by the end of 2022, Ghana's total loans from Eurobonds had reached $14 billion, with outstanding debt exceeding $13 billion.
Even though Ghana was not the first country to get the necessary international ratings, credit ratings, in order to be able to borrow from the international capital markets, we were the first to issue in 2007. And since then, we've become one of the largest issuers on the continent. The challenge that arose was that we started to borrow too much. Initially, it appeared as if confidence in the economy was sufficient to continue the cycle.
In 2007, Ghana stepped into the international capital market for the first time with the first issuance of $750 million. The then Finance Minister, Kwadwo Redu, returned from London with $750 million and several firsts. In fact, Ghana was the first sub-Saharan sovereign state to enter the international bond market and the first post-HIPC country to tap international capital.
We spent 336 million of our own oil revenue to start paying off the first sovereign bond issued under President Kufuor, moving away from interest only. Out of the 750, we left enough in the sinking fund, about 250 plus, for the current government to use 200 million to pay off the final installment on that. October 4th, the anniversary, 2017, it was a 2-year bond.
After going fallow for more than 5 years, Ghana was back to the Eurobond market for more loans.
The Mills era, we didn't borrow a lot. We had borrowed significantly under the Mahama era. And the reason that happened was that the Mahama era was trying to create a new strategy where they can combine IMF programs with international borrowing, which is what Kenya is doing right now. So Kenya gets money from the IMF, but it also borrows from the international market. And it blends both. It uses one to strengthen its hand in the other. So the Mahama government took that. But you can see evidence that initially, this was the borrowing costs that we're faced with. We hit as much as 10.75% for a very sudden thing before they went back to the IMF in 2015. So by the time they went back to the IMF in 2015, they were been able to bring down the cost of borrowing from 10.75% to 9% and a little above that. So one of the things that is evident is also that international markets tend to look at the IMF programs as evidence of, or rather a source of unbiased analysis.
Seth Tekpe was finance minister, and he led Ghana to its second trip to the Eurobond market to borrow $1 billion in 2013. He returned to the market for more loans in 2014 and 2015, and by the end of the Mahama administration in 2016, Ghana had taken Eurobond loans of up to $3 billion in 3 years.
Actually, I was the minister who, would I say, honored or what, to receive the letter from the World Bank and the African Development Bank telling us that we had become middle-income country. We couldn't borrow and repay over 40 years. We could only borrow and repay over 25 years when we became middle-income country.
So that was a cap that was placed on our borrowing.
It means that they call it moving to harder terms.
In 2017, Ghana saw a change in leadership as President Akufo-Addo assumed office. Ken Ofori-Atta was appointed finance minister. During this period, Ghana was halfway through a $918 million International Monetary Fund program initiated in 2015 under the previous administration led by John Dramani Mahama.
Now, when the baton was handed to President Akufo-Addo in 2017, they came to meet an existing IMF program, remember, from 2015. And that program, they had challenges, as I mentioned, managing that program because they were still balancing it with international borrowing at a significant level. So we had what often you call slippages, right? Now, the government had to double up and try and comply with the terms that the government had agreed. So 2017 was a fairly tough year for the government, right? Because you come and inherit a program, there are already some slippages, the IMF is not that happy. You need to double up and make sure that the program is running properly, given that you intend to do even more on the international capital markets. So you need the IMF data, the IMF analysis, the IMF verdict to be even more favorable.
the IMF board sits for hopefully the successful conclusion of Ghana's program and therefore an exit. And therefore the market in our mind has overwhelmingly endorsed the policies we've gone through the past 2 years and their comfort that going forward the country is in a good position to do well.
By 2018, Ghana's economic indicators had blossomed, fueled by positive economic forecasts and boosted credit ratings resulting from investor confidence following the successful implementation of the IMF program. The Akufo-Addo administration made its inaugural entry into the international capital market. By the close of 2018, the government had borrowed $2 billion through Eurobonds.
The problem was that we started to rack up the debt very quickly. Ghana is the biggest Eurobond borrower if you use its economy as a yardstick. Yeah. When you look at the carrying capacity of its economy. How? Because we moved from $4.5 billion in 2018 to $13.2 billion in a relatively short period of time.
In 2019, Ghana made its 7th appearance in the capital market, marking a significant milestone by successfully issuing its first triple tranche Eurobond offering on the international capital market.
So let me first talk about the bond sale yesterday, the 3 billion Eurobond sale. We were hearing it was oversubscribed by more than 6 times. Can you give us an update on how oversubscribed it was and how that sale went?
So essentially, we came out for $3 billion and amazingly in 3 tranches of 7-year, 12-year and 31-year. And all of those were overwhelmingly oversubscribed, as you mentioned. At some point, $22 billion. Ended up at 19.9, in which we closed with $3 billion.
The decision to launch this triple tranche transaction was influenced by the positive sentiments expressed by the international investor community. During 2019, emerging market EM yields were more attractive compared to those in developed markets, providing emerging economies like Ghana with a favorable opportunity to secure more loans.
With that kind of good appetite, I'm bound to ask you, will you come back to the market in 2019? And maybe even more so, would you even consider or deny that you will go for 100-year bond?
Well, I mean, it certainly gives one reason to pause. You know, there's usually speculation that election years are years in which countries sort of bust their budgets. Right now, I think we are comfortable with what we have done. We understand the market sentiment. We usually have a mid-year review to see how we are doing with the budget, and those are when, you know, we make decisions.
Just before the onset of the COVID-19 lockdown, Ghana received strong backing from the capital market, a sentiment reinforced by Moody's, the international ratings agency, which expressed confidence in the country's economy and provided a positive outlook. In February 2020, Ghana achieved a significant milestone by becoming the first African nation to issue a 41-year bond, a second tri-tranche on the international capital market.
Let's turn to Ghana, which is selling the longest dated Eurobond ever issued by a sub-Saharan African government. It has a 40-year maturity and is part of a wider sale, including notes maturing in 2035 and 2027, in order to raise $3 billion. To talk more about this, we're joined by Ken Ofori-Atta, the Finance Minister of Ghana. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's good to be here again.
Yeah, great to have you here. Now, this offer, the Eurobond offer, was 5 times oversubscribed. Does this mean that you're going to continue to test demand and issue even more longer-term securities? The last time you were here, we talked about a century bond.
We did talk about century bond, and last year we tried a 31, which was very successful. We've moved 10 years more to 41, so we are nearing it. I think yesterday it was very successful, $3 billion in 3 tranches, 7, 14, and 41, and we had a 15 billion book to work with. So clearly the markets have rallied in support of Ghana post-IMF, and that's good indications for the future for us.
Ghana accumulated loans totaling $8 billion from Eurobonds.
It changed the composition of our debt. It changed our debt from one where the majority of the money comes from multilateral and bilateral sources to one where the commercial sources were the most predominant.
In the fiscal year of 2020, the $3 billion proceeds were utilized for liability management operations, refinancing energy sector debt, and meeting budgetary requirements.
These are the tabulated costs of what it takes to get money from the capital markets, right?
Significant component.
Yes, because you'll be paying money to lead arrangers, paying money to legal firms, paying money to marketing and PR firms. You pay a whole bunch of money. So the money that you get, in the end, you may be paying as much as 7% or more in the market to your advisors. Now, if there are people in the government who have good friends in the capital markets, they are friends in JP Morgan, they are friends in Morgan Stanley, they are friends in Goldman Sachs, whatever, of course, they're going to be happy to pay those fees to their friends. But is that in national interest?
In 2021, following the conclusion of the COVID-19 lockdown, Ghana reopened for international trade, yet faced the challenge of a substantial budget deficit. The country's financial stability relied heavily on support from the international capital market. In a groundbreaking move, Ghana became the first African nation to issue a zero-coupon tranche Eurobond. By the close of 2021, Ghana had accumulated Eurobond loans of up to $11 billion over 4 years. $2 billion in 2018, $3 billion in 2019, $3 billion in 2020 during the pandemic, and a final $3 billion in 2021.
This comes at a time as well when the premium investors have asked to hold riskier assets is rising, in part because of the fallout from the coronavirus. Do you foresee, if we get any more of concerns around the coronavirus outbreak, that this could impact you issuing more bonds, or how you think about that?
Well, we're not going to come back until next year.
Something happened in 2021 when we decided to go to the market twice instead of the usual cycle of going once, normally for a $3 billion bond. And when we went the second time, that set off alarm bells because people started to look more closely because it was out of pattern. And then they realized that Ghana was far, far above its borrowing capacity. And therefore, this was rather reckless.
In 2022, Ghana faced economic challenges as emerging markets experienced soaring coupon rates for bonds, rendering them exorbitant. The escalation of sovereign bond interest rates was exacerbated by tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Consequently, only 3 countries, Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola, managed to issue Eurobonds in the first half of the year. Other nations, including Kenya and Ghana, were priced out of the international capital markets due to unsustainable interest rates.
When we started getting the downgrades and others, that we better fix it, because the domestic market was just too shallow.
It was quite clear that we're in too deep and we're in above our heads. And so once the rating downgrade came, that sealed our fate. We could no longer go back to the international capital markets to borrow, at least not on the Eurobond market, until we address issues of debt sustainability.
You are mindful about the cost of accessing capital from the markets, okay, and especially when your rating has gone down the way it is, we are almost in a junk territory, right? So one basic understanding of the market is that when you come onto the market unattractive, you'll be punished.
For Ghana, the burden of debt servicing obligations, limited to interest payments only, was projected to reach approximately $5 billion at both domestic and external levels in 2023. Unlike its 16th enrollment in 2015, Ghana's unsustainable debt position was certainly a huge obstacle in obtaining an IMF deal. This meant a lot of conditions had to be met. The IMF's message to Ghana was very simple: restructure your debt or no bailout package.
I also want to assure all Ghanaians that no individual or institutional investor, including pension funds, in government treasury bills or instruments, will lose their money as a result of our ongoing IMF negotiations. There will be no haircuts. So I urge all of you to ignore the false rumors.
Instantly, the market knew the president wasn't speaking the truth. You see that right after the president made a statement, the reactions were more or less to reject the statement. And therefore, my expectation is that any investor who probably took a decision on the back of that wasn't an investor, was probably a lotto doctor.
At the external level, Ghana is grappling with severe economic challenges, primarily centered on its balance of payments issues. These problems have led to a depletion of the country's international reserves and resulted in crises such as exchange rate fluctuations.
You can't be in the capital markets if you don't have a mechanism for repayment, which is a simple explanation for the sinking fund, which coincidentally is in the Constitution, but it's optional, which means that the framers of the Constitution, including finance ministers and others, may have known that there was that weakness and we needed to set it up. Contingency fund in the Constitution, we never set it up. So with the advent of oil, the question you asked, we decided let us begin to channel part of the oil revenue, which is new, to resolve, some of these things, if you like, bad practices.
The IMF has pledged $3 billion. The World Bank $1.5 billion, with the remaining $10.5 billion expected to come from external restructuring. Securing the $10.5 billion debt relief from external creditors poses a significant challenge for Ghana.
Discussions with the Eurobond investors are continuing. We have given a broad outline of 20 to 40% haircut under 20 years and interest rates of less than 5%.
You look at similar restructurings that have been done not too long ago, like the one that was done by Zambia, which was a very shallow treatment, to be honest with you. In fact, it also included early amortization, which meant that the bondholders could get paid earlier than anticipated for some of the amount. On top of that, there was some deferment, but there wasn't the massive NPV cuts that were expected. And now that the bilaterals are saying that was too cozy. And they're not willing to accept it on the basis of what they call comparability of treatment, which is simply a way of saying that different creditors like to see the burden shared fairly. So in the case of Ghana, we're trying to go the other extreme. We are trying to put all the pain on the private sector. I don't know the extent to which the government feels that kind of hardcore negotiation tactic will serve it.
The country received the first tranche of $600 million after an assurance from external creditors. However, access to the subsequent tranches depends on passing the reviews, contingent on concluding financing assurances with foreign creditors.
I don't think the government is that keen on restructuring. Why? It's very simple. Restructuring itself doesn't help the government. You know why? Because then you have to start paying. Now it's simply not paying. It's paying nothing. Restructuring means you have to start paying something. Unless it can get long deferments so it doesn't pay anything at all. That is not guaranteed. However, assurances help the government a lot. If they get assurances, a letter from the creditor committees they are working with on the bilateral side, so the Paris Club plus the non-Paris Club members, they get that letter, they get another tranche released. Next year, they get some assurances from some creditors that progress has been made. They get another tranche released. So they don't necessarily have to make full progress.
Certainly, the situation where China holds all of Ghana's collateralized loans positions it as a pivotal player at the negotiation table for debt treatment. This factor is crucial in determining the financing assurances Ghana needs to secure subsequent tranches under the fund program.
The truth of the matter is that it's never too clear, because as the bond delves deeper and deeper into junk territory, as it becomes less and less attractive, people that buy tend to be high-risk players. And high-risk players want high reward. You get the point? So their appetite is actually higher than the original blue-chip investors that we had. So these are people that bought knowing they could lose a lot of money. So at this point, there's no reason for them to accept a deep haircut. I mean, because they are willing to take the risk of a default. People that are willing to take a risk of a default or continue in default because we are already in default, And their mindset is different. They are willing to maintain the state of default until they can get as much money as they can. I think, therefore, that we are underestimating the resolve of the international bondholders to get as much money as they can out of us.
Ghana would have access to $600 million in financing. To ensure timely completion of the review, official creditors and the Ghanaian authorities will need to reach agreement on a debt treatment consistent with the objectives of the program and in line with the financing assurances that creditors provided in May of 2023.
Ghana stands at a critical economic juncture where the success of its 17th IMF program hinges on substantial debt relief, expenditure cuts, and significant revenue mobilization.
I'm the CEO and founder of Haven of Love Children's Foundation. I'm an agricultural engineer and at the same time a social entrepreneur. I believe in the fact that children are the future leaders of tomorrow and the children are the treasured ones.
Let's go.
In Haven of Love Children's Foundation, since inception from 2017, we've done a couple of projects centering on children, but not children, because we know that whatever touches the parents also touches the children. So it's an all-encompassing, impactful project we do. And Haven of Love is about young people who have come together because of the love of Christ, and we're making changes in our community. We may not have the financial resources, but we have the human resources. So we use our expertise. So we have doctors in our team, we have lawyers, we have teachers, we have a lot of other professions. People who use their professions to make impact. So some of the projects we do are surgeries, health programs, screenings, vaccinations, drilling of boreholes, STEM projects, parental guidance, educational projects, climate change project, planting of trees, environmental protection, and the likes, because we know that it's not just showing love, it's not just in one way, it should be all encompassing. So that is what Haven of Love Children's Foundation stands for. The JoyNews Impact Makers Award. It will go a long way to open more doors for collaborations, for partnerships, for mentorship, so that we can be built to come back to the rural communities, which is our main focus area, and make more impact.
Hello, I'm Esther Githu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. U.S. President Donald Trump and Jordan's King Abdullah discuss Gaza's future in White House meeting. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns that a ceasefire with Hamas will end and intense fighting would resume in Gaza if more hostages are not freed by Saturday. And government leaders and technology companies gather in Paris to discuss the future of artificial intelligence. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. U.S. President Donald Trump is doubling down on his demand that Jordan's King Abdullah II support his plan to take over Gaza and permanently take in Palestinians. Tuesday's White House meeting came amid a possible collapse of the fragile ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. White House Bureau Chief Patsy Widakuswara has this report.
Palestinians in the Gaza Strip fear the return of war after Hamas's threat to delay the next planned release of Israeli hostages and U.S. President Donald Trump's call to cancel the ceasefire. As he hosted Jordan's King Abdullah II at the White House Tuesday, Trump doubled down on his plan to take over Gaza.
I think it's going to be something that's going to be magnificent for the Palestinians. They're going to be in love with it. I did very well with real estate. I can tell you about real estate. They're going to be in love with it.
The Palestinians, along with Jordan, Egypt, and various other countries, have rejected Trump's plan to forcibly relocate an estimated 1.9 million Gaza residents into neighboring countries. But other than saying he would immediately receive 2,000 children in Gaza sick with cancer and other illnesses, King Abdullah declined Trump's invitation to share his counteroffer.
I think we have to keep in mind that there is a plan from Egypt and the Arab countries. We're being invited by Mohammed bin Salman to discussions in Riyadh. I think the point is how do we make this work in a way that is good for everybody?
It's a high-stakes meeting for Abdullah, who must maintain ties with a key ally whom Jordan depends on for foreign assistance. Trump hinted Monday he would withhold aid, but backtracked on Tuesday. Many Jordanians are descendants of displaced Palestinians. If Abdullah supports Trump's plans, it will create major political and economic problems and allow Hamas to enter, says Gaith Al-Omari of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy.
Hamas could create not only domestic problems in terms of terror, but also there's a fear that Jordan might then become a staging ground for attacks on Israel. All of these things will create very, very severe threats to Jordan's stability and maybe even survival.
Al-Omari said Trump's takeover plan removes the incentive for Hamas to continue the ceasefire. On Monday, the U.S. designated terror group threatened to delay the next planned release of hostages, alleging Israeli truce violations. Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded with the same ultimatum.
The decision I passed unanimously in the cabinet is this. If Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end, and the IDF will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated.
Israel will hand over Gaza to the U.S. after the war, Trump has said.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it.
These Gazans would disagree. Patsy Widakuswara, JoyNews, Washington.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is warning that a ceasefire with Hamas will end and intense fighting will resume in Gaza if more hostages held by the militant group are not freed by Saturday. So far, Hamas has released 21 hostages in a series of exchanges for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners.
In light of the Hamas announcement of its decision to violate the agreement and not release our hostages, last night I ordered the IDF to gather forces inside and around the Gaza Strip. This operation is being carried out at this time. It will be completed in the very near future.
That was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Democratic lawmakers are criticizing what they call the Trump administration's extreme efforts to reshape the U.S. government, vowing to oppose those changes despite limited political capital in both chambers of the U.S. Congress. Republicans, however, defend the move, saying attempt to stop fraud and waste are long overdue. VOA congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more.
A second week of protests from Democratic lawmakers concerned about President Donald Trump's attempts to reshape the U.S. government. Despite limited political capital in both chambers of the U.S. Congress, Democrats vowing to fight what they called the Trump administration's extreme efforts to close down government agencies and immediately lay off federal workers.
If you want to make cuts, then you do it through a debate in Congress, not lawlessly by just implementing them. We want waste. We want to make sure waste isn't done, but they're cutting out the meat that's going to hurt millions of American families.
Republicans have defended the work of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, led by billionaire Elon Musk, saying attempts to stop fraud and waste are long overdue.
The Democrat Party's tantrums are exactly why they hold no majority in Congress and their candidate is not in the White House. DOGE is rightly pulling back the curtains that have been closed for years, and the outrage we are seeing across the aisle is baffling but not surprising, given their record of mismanagement of taxpayer dollars.
Democrats are vowing to fight for protections for government agencies or withhold their votes in upcoming government funding talks.
There's very little appetite to help Republicans when we don't trust that Donald Trump is going to spend the resources that we've allocated for education, for health care, or even, we don't know, for our own defense. With Elon Musk and his unelected friends running through and combing through the federal system.
Democrats have had some success temporarily stopping Trump's executive orders in the U.S. court system. But one analyst told VOA other changes will take time.
We haven't yet seen the grassroots mobilization yet, but that's the one most indirect to levers of power within Washington, D.C. It takes time for those messages to resonate with the American people, them to coordinate with each other, to gain enough volume to reach members of Congress or enough members of Congress.
But Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said Tuesday the Democratic Party has very little power.
There's no identified leader of the party. They don't have a clear vision. They seem rudderless. In hopes of finding themselves, they've latched onto this new shiny object called the rule of law. Well, we'd like to welcome them to the concept. It would be admirable if they hadn't spent the last 4 years with their heads buried in the sand while Biden literally trampled over the rule of law with no objection.
The short-term agreement funding the U.S. government is set to expire March 14th. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
The Trump administration says it is carrying out a review of foreign aid programs and the main U.S. Agency for Humanitarian Assistance, USAID. Veronica Balderas Iglesias reports on what changes critics of the agency are proposing.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
With his America First approach, U.S. President Donald Trump has promised sweeping changes to how the United States interacts with the rest of the world.
The simple concept, America First, it doesn't mean you hate anybody else. It means that you have leadership, and President Trump has been very clear about this, that puts the interests of American citizens first.
In that context, President Trump ordered a 90-day freeze starting January 20th to all foreign assistance pending a government review, with some exceptions which U.S. Secretary Marco Rubio recently clarified.
We've issued waivers for programs that make all the sense in the world. They make America safer. They make America stronger. If it's providing food or medicine or anything that is saving lives and is immediate and urgent, you're not included in the freeze.
The U.S. Agency for International Development, which manages most of the foreign assistance programs, is under intense scrutiny, which some analysts say is necessary.
There's maybe parts of the U.S. Agency for International Development that might need to be downsized or repurposed to try to refocus them on U.S. national security objectives rather than merely promoting cultural norms that we find to be beneficial and useful here, but that may not be desired by the target country.
One of the things the Trump administration has been very concerned about is USAID's focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion around the world. I think that has been mishandled to a certain degree by USAID because some countries around the world are not ready for accepting, for example, gay marriage.
USAID workers have taken to the streets in recent days to defend their work and reject the potential dismantling of their agency. USAID contractor Mieka would not give her last name.
We work not by forcing people
to have respect for America or by telling people to have certain values, but by supporting them in the ways that they feel that they need, and in doing so, making the world a better place for all of us.
More targeted USAID investments in foreign countries could yield better returns, says defense policy expert Brian Clark.
Investments in humanitarian aid, even if they don't necessarily create an ally that's going to be able to support U.S. interests, is good because it promotes U.S. soft power and promotes the U.S. position in the world.
While the review of USAID programs is underway, officials have lifted the suspension on some programs such as the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR. But local clinics did not immediately reopen. Verónica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
The 27-nation European Union and Canada are vowing to stand firm against U.S. President Donald Trump's move to impose 25% tariffs on their steel and aluminum exports. Trump says the steel and aluminum tariffs will take effect on March 12th. In response, EU officials say they could target such U.S. products as the bourbon, jeans, peanut butter, and motorcycles, much of it produced in Republican states that supported Trump in his election victory. President Trump imposed the steel and aluminum tariff to boost the fortunes of U.S. producers. The EU has scheduled an emergency virtual meeting on Wednesday to shape the bloc's response. Despite the M23 rebels calling for the resumption of the schools in the eastern part of Congo city of Goma, which they captured in January, classrooms are still empty. Many families are fearful of sending their children back to bullet-ridden buildings. VOA's Philip Alexiou explains.
As the conflict in eastern Congo continues, the continuing displacement and movement of mass amounts of people does not stop. Camps are set up and people are moved out. Aid agencies are doing all they can. It becomes overwhelming. Yet a whistle blows announcing the beginning of school in this part of Goma, with only a few students attending where normally 1,200 would be in class on this day. School Director Rose Victorine Sudila Mwembo says school was badly hit, and the fighting between the M23 rebels and the Congolese forces have left families displaced and fearful of sending their children back.
Parents call us here and there to say they've moved their children to safer places. They don't dare send them to school because they still fear for their safety, and the children themselves are traumatized. They don't know how to navigate a world filled with the sounds of explosions, bombs, and stories like this. It pains us. We were almost approaching the end of the exams.
Goma fell into the hands of M23 rebels on January 27th. The region has since been the site of violent fighting between the Congolese army and M23 fighters, who Congo alleges are backed by Rwanda, a claim Rwanda denies. Despite a call from the M23 rebels for schools to resume normal operations, uncertainty remains for many families. Ongoing violence has created an atmosphere of fear that has not only emptied classrooms, but also damaged critical infrastructure. Bullet marks pockmarked school buses, while classrooms bear the scars of explosive devices. And some schools have been used as refuge centers for displaced families, further complicating efforts to restore normalcy.
Will the children be able to focus on their lessons after everything they've witnessed? The bomb fragments, the destruction, seeing where the bullets landed. Will the students truly settle back into their routines? We ask ourselves these questions because it's not easy. Even we, the staff, feel scared. How will we continue with the children? Only God knows.
Aid agencies are doing what they can, the U.S. being the #1 aid agency for Congo. But there are concerns now what will happen since President Donald Trump's decision to suspend aid assistance and how that will affect aid operations in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Philip Alexiou, VOA News, Washington.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, we'll have a look at the latest vehicles on display at the Chicago Auto Show. Stay with us.
on the next Straight Talk Africa. A new land reform law in South Africa is causing a stir in the United States and beyond. U.S. President Donald Trump froze all aid to South Africa of what he said are rights violations against some of its white citizens. South African authorities claim the law is attempting to redress racial inequality. Join me, Vincent Makori, in an in-depth discussion of South Africa's Expropriation Act.
In today's digital world, smartphones and social media have revolutionized the way we communicate, and dating is no exception worldwide, including Africa. Online dating platforms and social networks have created new opportunities for people to connect, breaking down traditional geographic and social barriers. On the next episode of Our Voices, we'll explore how men and women first connect through digital platforms and whether these connections can turn into lasting relationships. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, the leadership of Niger is set to hold a national convention February 15th to 19th to map out its long-awaited political transition following the July 2023 coup that deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. Military leader General Abdurrahman Chiani says the dialogue will be inclusive, set governance priorities, and determine the transition timeline. Somalia officials say nearly 100 people were killed and up to 60 others were wounded when members of the Islamic State terror group launched an attack on a military base belonging to security forces from Somalia's Puntland region. Puntland security officials told VOA at least 27 Puntland soldiers and more than 70 militants were slain in the fierce fighting around the Toga Josel area of the Kalmiskad Mountains in Puntland's Bari region. The latest offerings of electric vehicles take center stage in the U.S. at the 2025 Chicago Auto Show. VOA's Ken Faribault reports.
It sounds like an engine, and it might feel like an engine. But what propels the new Dodge Charger isn't an internal combustion engine at all. It's a fully electric vehicle, or EV. And while the sounds and smell of tires burning rubber are real, the hallmarks of a throaty exhaust are artificial.
I think you will forget that it's an EV.
Ryan Nagoti is vice president for interior design at Stellantis, which owns the Dodge brand. The Charger has long been an icon of the gasoline-powered American muscle car era. Nagoti says turning it into an EV, with certain models exceeding $60,000, was a leap of faith for Dodge.
We know that that's where, the country's heading, and it takes time.
A tax credit of up to $7,500, part of the Biden administration's 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, helped make pricey EVs manufactured in America more affordable. President Donald Trump has signaled plans to end the credit. Nagoti says those incentives weren't a major factor in the Charger's EV development.
You're getting a different customer coming to this vehicle, right? That's not their first and foremost thought.
Even so, incentives helped fuel an EV buying surge last year in the U.S., Cox Automotive reports, with about 1.3 million new vehicles sold, a 7.3% increase over sales in 2023.
Toyota has 19 electrified vehicles, so that includes hybrids, plug-in hybrids, fuel cell EV, and electric vehicles.
Matt Troyer is a product specialist with Japanese automaker Toyota.
Almost 30% of what we sell is now some kind of electrified vehicle.
None of which qualify for the current federal EV tax credit. Toyota's only fully electric vehicle in North America, the BZ4X, also doesn't qualify because it's manufactured outside the United States. In December, Toyota announced it was cutting the price of its BZ4X by up to $6,000.
We're seeing that electric vehicles are getting cheaper.
Megha Lakchora is the electric vehicle officer for the state of Illinois, which is continuing a $4,000 state rebate for purchasing a fully electric vehicle. She joined Melissa Washington, a senior vice president at energy supplier ComEd, at an auto show news conference.
We have $100 million in rebates that are being made available in 2025 for customers to adopt EVs. And that's going to be for all customers, our residential customers, our commercial customers, and public sector customers.
While uncertainty surrounds the future of federal incentives to buy EVs, Troyer says customers tell him they're more focused on the other benefits of EV ownership.
Less expensive to drive it, to maintain it too, and they love doing good things for the environment.
Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Chicago.
Government leaders and technology chiefs recently gathered at the Artificial Intelligence Action Summit in Paris to discuss the future of AI and explore the use of big data. Leaders called for rules and international governance so people could trust the new technology. Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho joins us now with more. Hello, Paul.
Thanks, Esther. Heads of state and technology executives are convened in Paris to discuss safely embracing artificial intelligence amid mounting resistance to heavy-handed red tape that businesses say stifles innovation. However, for AI technology to develop, big data is needed. To help us understand how AI and big data work, we turn to Isaac Mwinongo, a data analyst based in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Big data or data in general is the foundation of AI in today's world, and given the rate at which data is flowing, it's very, very important to put into considerations measures of how this data is going to be analyzed, and this brings in AI and AI tools. Remember, with big data, it is data coming in very fast with large volumes and coming in different structures, videos, text, voice, and it requires a lot of resources in terms of storage capacity to be able to analyze and make sense of this data.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about analyzing, what do we mean exactly to actually break it down and make sense of it?
This data that is coming in has hidden meaning behind there, but it takes experts to try and first pre-process it, clean it up, because depending on the goal that you want to achieve with that data, you have to analyze this data by pre-processing it, cleaning it up. You have to make sure the data that you're trying to process is relevant to what you want to achieve. So that is how data analysts come into play, to try and analyze this data, pre-process it, clean it up before it's, for example, put aside in different data models to analyze or predict whatever goal you want to achieve.
Recently here in the United States, there was a lot of concern. The U.S. government, the U.S. Congress and the Senate, they all voted overwhelmingly to ban TikTok because TikTok is owned by ByteDance. ByteDance is a Chinese company. One of the reasons they gave was data collection and privacy concerns. They were worried that the Chinese government is collecting data on Americans. From your vantage point, how do we stop something like that from happening?
There is always a concern of privacy on who owns the data. If, for example, I sign up on TikTok and put my profile and information, given that, for example, TikTok is an app across the world, definitely there will be privacy concerns in terms of the different regulations that cut across the different countries. So it's important for the different regulations or regulators in the different countries to put into consideration privacy laws that govern the different, for example, applications, because it brings the intercontinental aspects, brings in challenges of data regulation. So, for example, we don't know where our data is being kept with TikTok. is it being held in America if I'm an American, or if I put my location as America, or it's being kept in China. So all those aspects need to come out clearly, and that is what brings about transparency and ethical use of data.
Young people like you, people who are tech savvy, people who are into this space of AI, how can they take advantage of big data to do things for themselves, to go places?
There's a lot of information out there for the young people to learn from. You utilize how to use ChatGPT, you have a lot of information. It also takes an effort for the youth to try and understand how AI works and how to query it. It's not that anything you ask it, it will give you, but how you ask it is very important. So it's important for the youth to understand how they can make value out of these resources.
Should people who are now comfortable using OpenAI, ChatGPTs, be worried about this new kid on the block, DeepSeek?
They should per se not be worried, but try as much as possible to explore how it works. I've been using it myself, and it's really a very good tool, only that has been facing challenges of I think storage. People are using it a lot, and you'll ask it and it will not give you results because the servers are busy. I think it's revolutionizing the GPT world or the generative AI world, and I think it's very good for organizations because according to them, it can be way cheaper for you to have a GPT.
Isaac Mwinango is a data analyst based in Silver Spring, Maryland. That's our tech report. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you very much, Paul. Be sure to join Paul Ndiho each Wednesday for another tech segment right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.
Elmina Castle was built by the Portuguese in 1482. They came here in 1471 to trade. So the rate at which our locals here were giving the Portuguese gold gave the Portuguese an impression that the land here was full of gold. So they named this place Elmina, or Mina de Ro, which means the mine, gold mine. It has been corrupted by our local people as Elmina. Elmina is a Portuguese word. Elmina Castle is 539 years old. It is the biggest and oldest edifice in sub-Saharan Africa in connection with the slave trade. So they built the castle in 1482 under the command of Don Diego de Azambuja. So in the 16th century, Portuguese converted the trade into slavery. They lived here for 155 years. 1637, they were captured by the Dutch. The Dutch came here, continued with the slave trade, and they were in the house for 235 years.
Good afternoon, sunny Thursday afternoon. We are back here on Joy News. Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. Wherever you are watching us from, this is The Pulse. My name is Elton Brobe, and welcome. We are live also on channel 421, on DSTV, Gold TV's 125, and of course on X Spaces, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on myjoyonline.com. This afternoon, coming up, the MPP is set to hold a news conference to address recent developments in the country. We will bring you live coverage plus get real-time reaction here on The Pulse. This afternoon as well, Interior Minister launches a probe into security service recruitment as he inaugurates a 7-member committee tasked with investigating procedures and presenting findings within 2 weeks.
From the party from government, and they expect certain things like when you are doing recruitment, what should happen? We should let it bear open.
We'll explore this matter and delve deeper into that as well. Now, minority accuses national security of targeting MPP officials as they demand answers for the invitation and interrogation of their chief whip, Frank Anadompre.
If the NIB is truly committed to upholding law and order, it must explain why the minority chief was swiftly summoned for interrogation.
And later, where is the money? Frustrated countermountain traders still reeling from the fire over a month ago are demanding the immediate release of 2.8 million cedis in relief funds to ease their suffering.
Those outside also need help. They should come to our aid because we lost everything in the fire. We keep our goods in the markets and we lost even more than some of the traders inside.
My name is Elton Brobe, and let's settle now for the details. Now, the opposition New Patriotic Party is raising a number of issues in a news conference that just took place, that just started at the MPP's headquarters. Let me take you live there and bring you the very latest on this matter.
Saying all Ghanaians, because if left, we need to address these issues in its proper perspective. They can collectively undermine the due process provisions of our laws and the human right of citizens. It can also unduly interfere in the work of the judiciary, and it will weaken our cherished democracy. Yesterday, Mr. Kisie Jaben held a press conference and declared Ken Ofori-Atta, the former Minister of Finance, a fugitive from justice. It is baffling that a special prosecutor, a lawyer, and a law lecturer could make such basic mistake in labeling a person of interest who has not been charged and remains in contact through his lawyers as a wanted individual or a fugitive. Isn't that odd? A respected legal personality, a former director of the Ghana Law School, Mr. Ansan Asare, says that this act is not only barbaric, but uncouth, uncivilized, and unethical. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Ofori-Atta is not evading accountability, as the OSP claimed. On January 2nd, 2025, he wrote a letter to the then Chief of Staff, Madame Frima Osei-Opare, that he was traveling to the United States for a follow-up medical visit. He included his current and reliable contact information at the end of the letter. On January 22nd, 2025, Mr. Ofori-Atta again wrote to the new Chief of Staff, Mr. Julius Debra, to inform him that he was overseas for a medical examination. he concluded his letter with the following: please do not hesitate to reach out if there is any information you will need in the interest of the state regarding the fact that I've been or I've held some formal positions in government. Mr. Ofori-Atta also provided reliable email addresses for any required communication. He also attached his letter to the former Chief of Staff for Mr. Debre's reference. 2 days after he wrote this letter to the Chief of Staff, the special prosecutor sent a letter, and this was January 24th, 2025, sent a letter to Mr. Ofori-Atta's residence regarding a directive to appear at the office of the special prosecutor on Monday, February 10th, 2025. That was the date for him to appear, to discuss suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses. The letter also enumerated 4 matters being investigated by the OSP. Then on January 31st, Mr. Ofori-Atta responded to the special prosecutor's letter through his lawyer, stating that our client notified the former Chief of Staff in earlier January and more recently informed the current Chief of Staff about his trip outside the country for medical reasons. Our client is currently undergoing medical observation and test, which will lead to a decision about his treatment. After that, he will have a clearer idea of when to proceed to Ghana. Therefore, we respectfully wish to inform you that we will notify you of his arrival to the country so that you can reschedule your invitation to him for purposes stated in the heading of your referenced letter. Then on 5th February 2025, the special prosecutor responded to Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyer, stating that the OSP declines your request to be away from the jurisdiction indefinitely on medical grounds based solely on your statement. You are required to indicate by the close of business on Monday, February 10th, 2025, a reasonable date for your return to the jurisdiction and attendance to the OSP. If you fail to do so, the OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure your return to the jurisdiction and your attendance to the OSP in our discretion. Let me make this reference quickly. You recall that there was also another matter the OSP was investigating, the famous Airbus, the intermediary 1, intermediary 2 to 5 issue. Mr. Kisieja told us in August last year that he traveled all the way to UK to interview Sam Mahama, John Mahamad's brother, intermediary 5. So what stopped him from doing same to the former minister? This is somebody who is saying that I'm seeking medical attention. The health facility wrote a letter to the OSP. It was signed, dated, and it was an authentic letter. So if you think that you need a person badly for your investigation, just as you traveled to UK to interview Sam Mahama, what then stopped you from doing same to former finance minister? What is so urgent that you cannot wait? What is so urgent that if he could have waited 2 years before he interviewed Sam Mahama in the famous Airbus issue, then why this haste? And even if you do the calculations, we are talking about just within a space of 2 weeks. So you request the presence of somebody. The person say that I'm out of the jurisdiction for medical attention. You have received letters from his lawyers. You have received letters from the hospital signed by a medical doctor. And all of these correspondence is just within 2 weeks. Then quickly you label the person as a fugitive. Very, very bizarre situation. On February 7th, 2025, in a reply to the special prosecutor's letter of February 5th, Mr. Ofori-Attah's lawyer stated, "Please find the attached document indicating that our client is receiving attention at the Mayo Clinic in the US. It outlines his appointment and suggests a date after March when our client may be able to return to Ghana. A date after March. March is just next month." The letter from Mayo Hospital stated that Mr. Ofori-Attah was undergoing further testing and management, including possible surgical intervention in March 2025. The hospital's letter provided reliable contact, a doctor's name, the department name, a phone number, a reliable email address. It was also stamped Mayo Clinic authentic document with a signature and a date. Nonetheless, the correspondence between the OSP and the lawyers on February 11th, 2025, 12 men, including 1 police officer, 4 military personnel, and 7 unidentified individuals in plain clothes raided Mr. Ken Ofori-Attah's home. Video footage of the raid reveals that one Richard Japa, a third accused in the famous ambulance trial case, accompanied the men into the residence of Mr. Ofori-Attah, all armed to the teeth. Ladies and gentlemen, the OSP is being unreasonable considering the ongoing communication between Ken Ofori-Attah and the OSP office concerning his health. Additionally, the treatment letter from the Mayo Clinic should demonstrate that he is indeed receiving care. My little knowledge in law reveals that if somebody is declared a fugitive, it means that person cannot be reached, cannot be traced. You don't even know where the person is. And at least you give yourself a reasonable time after a search. In any case, the OSP lacked that power to declare anybody wanted. It is only the court that can do so. If the special prosecutor's letter from January 24th had prompted Mr. Ofori-Attah to leave Ghana, the OSP might be justified in harboring suspicion. However, Mr. Ofori-Attah was already out of the country well before OSPs contacted him. He traveled on the 2nd of January, and your letter to him came in on the 24th of January. So how could the man be labeled as a fugitive when he was already in the country? Indeed, he was not even the finance minister about 8 months before the elections. And you, Mr. Kise Jaben, you were the special prosecutor. And he was in the country throughout. For 8 months to the election, you could not invite the person. The person steps out of the country for medical attention. And it is not as if you wrote to the person before he traveled. Your letter came 2 weeks after he had traveled. And yet, you unreasonably label this person as a fugitive. Very, very, very unreasonable. To avoid any misunderstanding, since he has appointed since he was appointed Minister of Finance in 2017. Mr. Ofori-Atta has consistently demonstrated unwavering transparency and respect in response to all legal inquiries and state investigation involving him. The Eurobond conflict of interest probe by Sraj, the vote of censure by Parliament readily comes to mind. Mr. Ofori-Atta has remained present, fully engaged, and open with the relevant authorities throughout these proceedings. His long history of openness and cooperation reinforces a commitment to upholding the highest standards of integrity. Mr. Ofori-Atta can never be a fugitive. He is not a fugitive, and he will never be a fugitive. The OSP got it wrong. He got it wrong. Once Mr. Ofori-Atta's doctors declare him fit and healthy, he will return to the country. Until then, the special prosecutor should avoid making sensational statements, provoking public emotions, and creating drama over the matter that could have been adequately resolved through correspondence. If you label your former finance minister as a fugitive, which indeed is not so, what you are doing is that it's a national embarrassment. It amounts to national embarrassment. When indeed the length of your correspondence is just 2 weeks and you can't wait. It's not as if the person is lost. The person cannot be traced. Again, the special prosecutor also mentioned in his press statement yesterday that the former National Petroleum Authority boss, Honorable Dr. Sheikh Mustafa Abdul Hamid, is a subject matter of investigation. Again, in a very bizarre situation, you put together a press conference, you state that Dr. Mustafa Hamid is a subject matter for some investigations, that is corruption-related offenses. Yet at the time you were making such a statement, Dr. Mustafa had not even received even a text message, even a letter, even a phone call, nothing, no correspondence that you need him for investigation. Is this fair? Is that how you do your work? It is interesting to note that Honorable Mustafa has not received any invitation from the special prosecutor or any state investigative body, nor has he been under any investigation for any said alleged crime. Let me state that the MPP, we are going to cooperate with any state investigative body. We are. The MPP, our members, past CEOs, past officials, anybody, we are going to fully cooperate. Let it be known that the New Patriotic Party and our members are law-abiding and will cooperate fully with any state institution. But however, we will reject any form of political harassment. Any form of political harassment. What happened in Mr. Ofori-Atta's house is very unfortunate. We are not in a jungle. What happened there? And for the special prosecutor to even say that his intelligence revealed that what happened in Mr. Ofori-Atta's house was staged, managed. It was staged by himself. It's very unfortunate. When especially we have CCTV footages showing all of these men in uniform, all the vehicles used, and one Japa leading the men. So the OSP got it wrong. What kind of intelligence is he gathering? What kind of intelligence? Ladies and gentlemen of the media, let's move on to the next issue. The government's illegal Directive 2 nullify or to revoke public service appointment made after December 7th, 2024 is regressive, potentially detrimental to the democratic gains and governance in Ghana. The President's directive to the Chief of Staff instructing heads of government agencies to nullify or to revoke all public service appointments made after December 7th is poorly conceived, illegal, and profoundly damaging to the hardworking Ghanaian. This decision contradicts the core principles of job creation, which the ruling party promised through its 24-hour economy. We were here in Ghana, we were told that the 24-hour economy will provide jobs in the morning, some will go in the afternoon, others will go at night. So what happened? Mr. President, in addition to its devastating effect on individuals and families, the directive lacks legal foundation and compromises the integrity of Ghana's public service recruitment processes. Public service recruitment in Ghana is not arbitrary. It follows strict bureaucratic processes with multiple levels of approval. Before hiring a personnel, any agency must obtain financial clearance or board approval from the relevant authorities. In some cases, even from Public Services Commission. You must secure financial clearance from the Ministry of Finance, incorporate new hires into its annual budget planning, and adhere to specific timelines set by the Ministry of Finance, which often spans months or even years. So the processes of recruitment is not just an event. Ladies and gentlemen, it is absurd to suggest that public services could bypass all these public agencies, could bypass all these procedures after December 7th, 2024, and illegally recruit staff. The mere date of appointment does not invalidate the due process that was followed before these individuals were hired. If recruitment occurred within an approved financial clearance period, retroactively nullifying these appointments clearly violates administrative justice and employment rights. Further, Ghana's labor laws protect employees from arbitrary dismissals. Appointments that follow proper procedures establish legal contracts between employees and the state. A blanket cancellation of such appointment would constitute unlawful termination, exposing the government to potential lawsuit. Accordingly, the letter signed by the Chief of Staff, he stated that the recruitments were made in the public services are not in compliance with established good governance practice and principles. It is worthy to note that this so-called good governance practice and principles can never be grounds for termination of appointment. In his letter, he never mentioned that these recruitments were done illegally, they did not follow due process. He never mentioned so. He only said that it was against good governance and practices, all because the people received their appointment letters on the 7th of December 2024. Constitutionally, every government has a 4-year mandate. And it is clear when the mandate will expire. So before the exit of any government, that government duly, under the Constitution, can undertake any exercise, including recruitment. Ladies and gentlemen, this revocation will destroy livelihoods. We are talking about the police, those who have been recruited, the police, military. We are talking about fire service, immigration, SEPS. We are talking about GRA. We are talking about all institutions. So we are talking about thousands of jobs, mass unemployment. The most immediate and devastating consequences of this directive is the mass unemployment. Thousands of Ghanaians who have legally secured jobs will suddenly find themselves without work, not due to incompetence or redundancy or any illegality, but because of a certain political expediency. This decision will also plunge thousands of families into financial distress, worsening the already difficult economic condition. It will also discourage young professionals from pursuing careers in public service, as it indicates that job security is subject to a political current. The government must recognize that public service appointments are not gifts. They are legitimate job opportunities, and through due process, these affected workers are not just numbers, they are fathers, they are mothers, they are recent graduates, they are breadwinners. They have committed themselves to national service. Their fate should not be decided by politically motivated directive. The New Patriotic Party has a duty to defend Ghanaians against such unjust directive. We will not support the Mahama administration in destroying the livelihoods of Ghanaians who have gone through the process to secure their appointment. On December 19th, 2016, when the NDC lost, I recall the former President Mahama, then now President Mahama, through the same chief of staff, made key appointments. In fact, on the 16th of December 2026, that was when they appointed the Auditor General, the former Auditor General, Mr. Domlevo, who is part of the discredited URA. Key appointments were made. Mr. Joseph Whittle, Ms. Josephine Nkrumah, and Mr. Daniel Domlevo to lead SHRAJ, National Commission for Civic Education, and the Office of the Auditor General, respectively. Additionally, on December 20th, 2016, President Mahama, through the Finance Ministry, also increased, I recall, the National Service Allowance from 350 Ghana cedis to 549 Ghana cedis, effective January 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, the MPP government under President Akufo-Addo did not cancel these appointments. We honored them. Likewise, we did not dismiss John Mahama's last-minute appointment or last-minute increase to the National Service Allowance. We honored all of these. This is how democratic governance should function. It's supposed to be a continuum. Therefore, President Mahama cannot revoke the appointment of these recruitments, just as President Akufo-Addo took responsibility for his last-minute appointment in 2016. He must also take responsibility for the appointment made legitimately, whatever date within 2024. Now, because this directive lacked basis and it was not well grounded in law, you realize that there have been a lot of abuses. When you go to Ghana Water, I saw a communique from the Chief Executive Officer saying that for him, he has revoked all appointment from November 2024. Why? Because when he took office, he noticed that the appointment made at Ghana Water were in November 2024. So if he is supposed to stick to the directive of the Chief of Staff, he will not get anybody to sack. So he had to go back to November 2024. Very bizarre. So because this directive lacked proper legal grounding, it's been a subject of abuse by so many state institutions. And this is very, very unfair. We urge Ghanaians whose livelihood are at risk due to this unfortunate directive from President Mohammed's administration to remain strong and recognize that the New Patriotic Party is dedicated to protecting their legitimate jobs. The MPP will fully support any legal action to undo this illegality, this wrongful termination of appointment. I am already in court. I've already directed my lawyers. Today, as I speak, they will serve all processes. They are going to file all processes today. We are in court to challenge the unconstitutional act of the president, and the New Patriotic Party will support any legal action to undo this illegal and wrongful termination of appointment. We also encourage the affected persons to come together and seek legal redress. Ladies and gentlemen, President Mohammed's administration is a growing disaster, particularly in the fight against corruption. As you know, the government established oral committee. For us, it looks like the committee was just set up as a political persecution mechanism. Why? I have a report in my hands, and I'll read it. The former Chief Executive Officer of Microfinance and Small Scale Center, Maslok, Sedinam Tamaklu Aduno, has been sentenced to serve 10-year prison with hard labor. The conviction stems from misappropriation of funds allocated for Maslok activities between 2013 and 2016. Over 17 million Ghana cedis, which was meant to be disbursed to victims of fire incident at Kantamanto, was misappropriated by the accused. The report that was presented to former President Mahama, and even the ones that we've seen circulating, I've not seen even a sentence or even a page talking about Sedinam Tamaklu, somebody or who misappropriated. He was a former CEO of Maslok. And for this person, the entire matter has gone through our court processes. The court made pronouncement. He's been sentenced to 10 years in prison. Yet, the oral committee whatsoever did not find it appropriate to tell Ghanaians where Sedinam Tamaklu is. Indeed, I'm even surprised that even yesterday when the Attorney General had the press conference, I was thinking, because this is a pending issue, this is some monies misappropriated, 70 million. I was thinking that the Attorney General will even mention it, that maybe they've been taking steps to make sure that Sedinam Tamaklu will be brought back to Ghana. She rather is a fugitive, not Mr. Oforiatta. She rather is a fugitive, not Mr. Oforiatta. President John Dramani Mahama has promised OCAL instead of oral. President Mahama now, according to Manasseh Azori, is the Republic's chief clearing agent. Ladies and gentlemen, President Mahama cannot shift the chief clearing agent tag to the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayeni. Yesterday at the press conference, you saw how the Attorney General struggled to say that President Mahama did not direct him to file nolle prosequi and that he made a decision independently. I mean, this is bizarre, and for me, this is even more worrying. Such important matter. A minister tasked with the construction of 5,000 units of houses, $200 million involved. We did not get the 5,000 units. We rather got uncompleted 1,005 units. The said minister was in court, and the Attorney General entered into a nolle prosequi, and he's been appointed. You have a situation where there is a $66 million scandal hanging around the neck of the former Senate boss, Mr. Ernest Thompson. And instead of him to answer to Ghanaians through the court, again, the Attorney General entered into a nolle prosequi, cleaned this person. He says, go home. And then you have a former deputy governor in charge of banking supervision, advancing a colossal amount of 400 million or so to a collapsing bank. And he's in court to answer. The Attorney General goes to court, picks this man up, clears him of all charges. Then the following day, interestingly, he is appointed governor, Bank of Ghana. So you ask yourself, President Mahama, so is it the case that you cannot get anybody at all to be governor, Bank of Ghana, and you must appoint somebody with a heap of cases around this, with so many issues around his neck? He is answering a case in court, a case involving over 400 million Ghana cedis or so. And the Attorney General goes in, picks him up, clears him, then the following day he is appointed governor. Meanwhile, you are chasing after certain ghost document from ORA. And then you have Mr. Domlevot saying that even all the documents they have gathered, it must be audited before it can be credible. Can you imagine? You've been given a work to do, and then you present your report, and now you are telling us that even the work that you have done is not even correct. It's not even solid, and that we must audit it again. This is the kind of situation we find ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, the Attorney General can tell this story that the president wasn't aware. What kind of governance is that? That you drop such important cases in court, involving former ministers, involving somebody you intended to appoint the governor, Bank of Ghana. You made all of these decisions without the input of the president, and the president wasn't aware. Said this to some children by the fireside, but not to us. President Mahama appointed him and instructed him to clear the NDC members whilst taking steps to prosecute opponent using a certain discredited URA. Even their chairman cannot even declare his asset. He says that he stays in Airport Hills. A plot in Airport Hills is about $500,000. He says he's not the owner of the mansion he stays in. A big mansion with swimming pool, 8-bedroom, big mansion. He says that he's been renting this building for the past 8 years. From our checks, it is between $15,000 to $20,000 a month. He told the committee, the vetting committee, that the only source of income for him is the money he receives as an MP. You let's add all his sitting allowance, committee allowance, all of that. his pay is 20,000. All the allowances put together, let's say 40,000. And then you stay in a 220,000 Ghana cedis a month house. You, Oral Committee Chairman, you cannot even declare your assets. You cannot even disclose your source of income. So where do you get money, apart from the 40,000? That where do you get money to fund all of these 220,000 rent you pay every month? In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, this Mahama government has deceived Ghanaians. A candidate who campaigned to reduce the cost of living is now busily undermining people's livelihood by revoking their appointment. Candidate or President John Dramani Mahama, who promised to uphold the laws and combat corruption, instead is clearing alleged wrongdoers and turning blind eye whilst the OSP abuses the law to target his political opponent. The NDC did not promise this to Ghanaians. Based on the experience so far, the reset President Mahama promised is a deterioration of Ghana's modest gains. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghana needs an upgrade, not just a regressive reset we are experiencing only a month into President Mahama's governance. We invite Ghanaians to join the effort to hold the Mahama government to strict accountability. Thank you very much. So, many anoma moha yebe kano chi so. Yebe bono. Nietie. Enra and
Right, so we've been listening to the national organizer of the opposition MPP, Henry Nana Boakye, raising issues about the raid that took place at the former finance minister of Foyata's home, the OSP's position on him, and of course the work of the ORA. Now we'll be doing some analysis of this and get reactions from the NDC, because in the studio with me this afternoon is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, who's also the Deputy Director of Operations at the presidency, Mustafa Gbande. The MPP caucus in Parliament has also been talking to the media about what they describe as attempts by the governing NDC to intimidate their base. They make reference to the former Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwu and then the Minority Chief Whip Frank Anadompre. We can listen to the Deputy Minority Leader and then we'll come back to the analysis in the studio.
Bias and selective justice being exhibited by state security agencies in the administration of their duties. The National Intelligence Bureau, the NIB, on Monday, 10th February 2025, wasted no time in summoning the Minority Chief Whip, Honorable Frank Anadompre, for questioning over comments he made concerning the disputed Ablekuma North parliamentary elections results. His words urging MPP supporters to protect their own were swiftly deemed insightful and required interrogation at the highest level of the security apparatus. Yet, when Mustafa Gbande, the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC and Deputy Director of Operations in the presidency, openly declared on live television on Friday, 7th February 2025, that the NDC would sacrifice the minority leader, Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin, the NIB found no cause for alarm and did not summon him If the NIB is truly committed to upholding law and order, it must explain why the minority chief whip was swiftly summoned for interrogation over his comments, while the deputy director of operations at the presidency, who openly threatened the minority leader's life, was allowed to walk free without consequences. This double standard raises serious concerns about the selective application of justice and the use of state institutions to police certain political figures while others are allowed to act with impunity.
Right, so that's the Deputy Minority Leader, Patricia Piaget, on what they describe as attempts by the government to silence them. Now, there's been the latest on the raid that took place at the home of the former Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. The Majority Leader in Parliament, the member of Mahama Yarega, has for the first time admitted that some security agencies entered into the residence of the former Finance Minister. National Security Coordinator, according to him, says that what happened was regrettable and should not have happened. That's Mahama Ayarga. If the visuals are ready, we can bring that to you right now. Mayariga on the raid that took place at the former Finance Minister's residence. According to him, on the floor of Parliament, the National Security Coordinator says what happened was regrettable and should not have happened. He says it is true that the private residence of Ken Ofori-Atta was entered into by a team of police officers, military, and national security operatives. And according to Mahama Yarga, the Majority Leader, the National Security Coordinator has told him that what happened was regrettable and should not have happened. He also confirmed that Richard Dakpa is now a national security operative. Now, let's get some reactions to what you've been listening and watching this afternoon here on the Pulse. And first was the national organizer of the MPP, Henry Nana Boakye, and then the Deputy Minority Leader, Patricia Piaget, also making virtually the same point, but zeroing in on members of Parliament on the MPP side that, according to her, are under attack. Now, the man whose name came up prominently at that news conference is in the studio with me. Mustafa Bambe is a Deputy General Secretary of the NDC and also currently the Deputy Operations Director at the President's Jubilee. So, Mustafa, why would you want to eliminate members of the minority?
Well, good afternoon, and good afternoon to our cherished listeners.
Is it true that you have such an agenda to eliminate the minority leader and members of the minority?
I think that I'm shocked. I'm quite surprised. And I've never said that. And I've never conceived any intention to take human blood for the purposes of political expedience. It's not my way, it's not my style. But hey, I mean, I believe that whosoever calls for equity must come with clean hands.
So the comments they attributed to you.
What I said.
You have not made it.
I commented on the posturing of Honorable Afenya Markin in Parliament to the extent that I questioned that when you raise the rules of equity, that bar, Afenya Markin is not clean, but yet seems to posit to the people of Ghana that he is clean, and that the interviewer asked me that what he was doing in Parliament, party leadership was in Parliament to support him. And I said that if party leadership urges you on to do what is wrong, when the system is about to sacrifice, take you on, that was what I meant. The party leadership who are clean will stay off, and you, the individual who is not clean, will be singled out. Then there are papers, did editing, and I don't listen to these things. And you see, the fact is that, let me assure you, that if you are not clean, the law will test you. And all this noise, when they were doing the press conference, behind the deputy minority leader of parliament, is another fugitive. The man who bribed election officers in Ejiso, you remember? MP for Kwadaso, who openly was seen bribing electoral officers in the Ejiso by-election, was standing behind him.
A matter that is still.
So if you go and parade,
a matter that is still being investigated.
So again, that's what I'm saying.
So can we establish the